Even after losing Zach Wheeler, the Philadelphia Phillies are on their way. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Philly Sports Now, a Philly fan podcast. My name is Zach. With me is Andrew, and we're back to talk all things Philly sports now that the Eagles have officially played their first game. That's right, folks. This podcast will be going up on Friday, September 5th, which means the Philadelphia Eagles have completed their first game of the season. Did they win? Did they lose? I don't know. We're recording this on Wednesday. But tell us in the comments below whether or not the Eagles won, or if I should destroy this shirt. Anyway, moving on. We're talking Phillies today, folks. We're talking about the Phillies August, how they did since my last podcast when I talked about Zach Wheeler getting taken out for the rest of the season, for the rest of the year. Now, I feel like there's a lot to discuss. It's been a pretty, again, this was my last episode was about 2 weeks ago, I think. It's been a kind of a up and down, but I think there's a lot of grounding to be happen right now. And the reminder from Philly Sports Now that the sky is not falling, because I feel like a lot of people panicked with Zach Wheeler and a lot of people panicked with losing to the New York Mets 3 times. But I think there is a lot to discuss here. I'm not going to throw it to Andrew just yet because I'm going to cue him up per usual. We've got plenty to talk about here, lots to talk about. Focus of today will, in fact, be my opinion, my assumption being the Mets series. But let's talk August. We finished the month out of August. Now, like I said, we previously discussed about 2 weeks ago, halfway through that month. Since our last podcast, since my last recording, the Phillies went 6-4. In the month of August, the Phillies went 17-11. Both of these numbers equate to about a 60% win ratio. So, even with the Phillies getting swept by the New York Mets, the Phillies are coming in to September with a 60% win ratio, still maintaining that. It's something that they've pretty much held consistently throughout the season. And I think it's a major thing that people aren't really talking about. I think it's something that really exemplifies how good the Phillies are, is having this win ratio. I think there are good things being talked about, one of which being Kyle Schwarber. But I just think in general, there's been a lot of jumping ship with the Phillies. I was recently in Philly for a wedding. Shout out Will and Ruthie. Great wedding. Gorgeous. Thanks for having us. It was a great time. I think a lot of Phillies fans are kind of like, whatever. Like, whatever. And I think this Phillies team has really shown that they're winning against pretty much everyone. And it's really tough. But the one team they can't win against right now is the Mets in New York. And bad series. We'll talk about it. But I just think in general, August was a really good month for the Phillies. And I would like to discuss that overall winning percentage mentality. Andrew, how was August?
Yeah, it was good. I mean, you saw Dave make his moves to the deadline. They're really impactful. Harrison Bader's playing really well. Duran Duran's playing really well as closer. And I think you saw it. And you saw it. That's going to continue to help this team continue to stay afloat without Zach Wheeler. And I mean, you obviously saw the Phillies take over a commanding lead in the division going into September. Going into September with the 6-game lead, even with getting swept to the Mets. So I mean, I think that shows you how good of a baseball the Phillies are playing. So I mean, I think it was everything you could ask for in the month of August.
Yeah, and I also think that, like how do you like before the break yesterday, so the Phillies are currently playing the Brewers and losing 6-1. So not looking good. We'll assume a loss for the sake of this conversation. But before today, the Phillies maintaining a 5.5 win lead over the Mets, even after losing 3 games to them last week. I mean, that just shows how much of a dominance the Phillies have had.
Yeah, and they just struggled in New York. I mean, I think it'll be all forgotten when the Phillies play the Mets here in a few games, and once the Phillies win that series, or I would keep forgetting it's a 4-game series, but when we face them again and we take care of business at home, at least getting the split, I think it'll all be okay. I think it's a tough spot to play in, and I think for some reason it's in their heads right now. But once you get to the postseason, it's a whole new game. saw what happened last year, obviously, with the Mets upsetting the Phillies. And once you get to there, anything can happen. So I think, I mean, again, they just hold your ground here, and I think you'll be fine. And there's a lot of panic, but there's a lot of unnecessary panic just because of what happened last year against the Mets.
And I
And yeah,
also
I mean, here's
think,
the thing: you're worried about a team you might not even face in the playoffs. I mean, if you hold on and get the division, get a bye, Mets could lose to the Dodgers first round if the season ended today, and you'd be facing the Dodgers. So, I mean, a lot of panicking for potentially nothing for a team that you might not even face.
it's funny how I'd rather play the Dodgers than the Mets in the playoffs right now.
I'd rather the Mets, but to teach her.
I think Andrew's a little less superstitious than I am. That's all. Um, it's funny though because like when it comes to the Eagles, I'm almost not at all superstitious. But when it comes to the Phillies, I'm basically kissing every leprechaun and horseshoe that exists right now. Uh, I meant four leaf clover, but I'll kiss the leprechauns too, I guess.
That's funny.
um, no, but I also like, and again, we'll get into the Mets series just now in a second. But I do think even skipping ahead, like taking 3 of 4 against Atlanta was huge because that again shows that dominance. You don't let a 4 game series fall to even 2-2, which would be acceptable. And like we come off of a losing series to the Mets, and you go, oh well, I guess they at least they got 2 against Atlanta, and they walk away, limping, something like that. But no, they went and they won a 4 game series, which is hard to do. I need the Phillies to go win the 4 game series against the Mets next week, but to have them do that against the Braves was, I mean, it was a big bounce back, and I think it's something to applaud. Now that being said, let's talk the nitty gritty, which is the 3 game loss against the New York Mets last week. I will say, just kind of another fun shout out conversation, but I was talking to my friend Sean at that said wedding, and I was like, I was giving him his chance. I was like, hey, I'll eat crow. Phillies lost all 3 games to the Mets, and he was like, I forget his exact words, but it was something like, no, I can't really say anything because the Phillies are the only team we win against. So it's like even the Mets fans right now are kind of in the same boat of like they're happy they're beating the Phillies, but they're not confident. You know what I mean? And I think we're like essentially in an opposite boat where I think we should be confident. It's just the Mets that give us a run for our money.
Yeah,
And
Mets
like
can have every game. Mets can have every game if it means we're going to win the division.
exactly. That's all that matters. That's all that
Yeah,
matters. I do want to so to talk about specifically the Mets series, I definitely brought it down to a failure in pitching, whether it's bullpen, whether it's the starting pitchers. That's kind of what I wanted to talk about. But I think the huge shift was a lot to be said about pitching. And so I have here my stats I wanted to talk about. Game 1, August 25th, Sanchez had 5 earned runs, with the game ending with a total of 13 runs. It's that's a weird situation, right? Because that's almost like 50-50. You know, Sanchez left the game with, I believe, 6 runs, 5 ER, and at that point, they go to double it. So like the bullpen doesn't do any favors, but also Sanchez let 5 runs. So that's a tough. That's like literally all pitching was terrible. Game 2, August 26th, Luzardo goes and lets 4 earned runs. The game ends with 6. So that's on him. Like bullpen comes in, they do their job, they keep it to 2. Zardo let 4 in. Game 3, August 27th, Taiwan Walker, same exact thing. 4 earned runs, total of 6 in the game. So I actually think when you want to talk about the pitching, it's a combination here because game 2 and 3, I would put on Luzardo and Walker, whereas game 1, sure, I'm not happy with Sanchez, but really the whole team didn't do him any favors.
no, I disagree in the sense. I think it was a full series with the whole team. I mean, the offense didn't show up. I mean, the one game you get shut out, 6-0 in that game. So I just think it was a bad series for everybody. Um, the first game you had chances to, or the second game you had chances to put the Mets away and add on to your lead, and the offense failed to do that, which allowed the Mets to come back, and then they have the big 5-run inning. So I think full on, like the pitching didn't show up, the bats didn't show up. So I think it was a full series, full team letdown. And again, I just think for some reason it was in City Fields in their head, and it just kept them from getting that big moment. So I think whatever that is needs to shake it out. And even in that first one, you go up 3-0, and you have a chance to kind of put them away with an add on, and you couldn't do that. And then the Mets answered back with three to tie the game. So I think there's a lot of letdowns all over the place.
I thought it was so very evident to me that you can't let the Mets get hits. Kind of, I mean, in like that just sounds like don't let them score, But like really, like that's the in Citibank, they get in your head. Like I feel like this team, like they really crumble when they let them get to them, and I would have been perfectly happy with the offense just kind of delivering what they needed. But I think the defense in this was more important, which is why I'm focusing on it. Um, so I guess Andrew, since you think it was an all around loss, which again I'm not, I just don't. I put it more on the defense. What offensive plays do you think really impacted these losses?
The ability to hit with runners in scoring position. That they kept getting on base and just failed to get the big hit from top to bottom, from Harper, from Schwarber, from Turner. I think Turner had 2 hits in that series, and it's between him and everybody else in the top four of the lineup. I think he's the only one with a hit. JT went hitless, Harper went hitless, and Schwarber went hitless. So I think from all of them, it was just a big letdown from them top to bottom. And those are your guys that you're paying the money to come up in those situations. So, and even Turner's one hit was a misplay by the outfielder, allowing him to get a triple. So I think from that standpoint, again, it was the bad series. I'm not worried. I just think from that point, that's where I from the offensive standpoint, I put the blame in there. But again, nothing to I think panic about, but just notes from the series.
I do like. I mean, I already said it, but I think we're not panicking because the Phillies went and won 3 games against the Braves afterwards. Right now, what also helps is the Mets go and lose 3 games against the Marlins afterwards. So division, 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 division. Right, like it's all that all four fighting for the same title. Technically, I'm not saying the Braves and Marlins have a chance, but technically, it's all the same. It's all the same can and. I think it's important because, again, big picture, this shows the difference between the Phillies and the Mets, where the Phillies lose, bounce back, take a series, you know, in take full control. The Mets win, and rather than keep that momentum going, they go lose 3 straight to the third best quote unquote team in the division. Now, mind you, the Marlins don't even have a winning record. So, like, I think it's important to say like the Phillies won against a team they need to win against, whereas the Mets, if they had any like to me that was the proof in the pudding that the Mets really aren't gonna get this title because the Mets would have capitalized on winning against the Marlins. They would have capitalized on keeping their win column stacking. And let's say they took 2 out of 3 against the Marlins and the Phillies still take 3 or 4, that would have put them at a quick math gives them a 2 game lead now. Like the Phillies only have a 2 game lead in that situation.
Yeah.
So it's amazing because again, that I think the Phillies want it more, dude. And I think the Phillies are doing what they need to do. The Mets are just arguably, statistically, okay, good enough. And like you go and you lose against them in New York.
Yeah, and that's the thing is the team bounced back and got it. And I mean, with that being said, I just think it's where this team's at now, and they'll figure it out. I mean, it's a certain spot where the team needs to regroup and find a way to get it out of their head. And like you said, you have a chance here in a few games to bounce back and avoid letting them climb back in it. But to our point about us bouncing back, the Mets did the same thing as well. They lose 3 out of 4 of the Marlins and they take 2 against the Tigers, who have the best record in the American League. So similar to them, they were able to put that bad series behind.
I figured we go into a little bit of good conversation, bad conversation with the Braves series. However, I'm going to start with kind of the bad. Even though they get the win, Aaron Nola was kind of the weakest link here. Aaron Nola let all 4 runs in that first game. And he currently playing against the Brewers has 6 earned runs and he's out, obviously. Not too good of a spot, Aaron Nola, in the past 2 games.
No, and he hasn't looked right since the injury. unfortunately. And hopefully, he had one good game after that injury. And then tonight, he just struggled to start. Like, he kind of settled in after it. Same thing with Atlanta. He gave up three in the first inning, settled in, and pitched fine in that game. But tonight, he gives up five in the first inning and then only allows one run the rest of the way. So it's whatever reason, he's just not. I don't know if it's just, I'm not saying it's prep work, meaning preparing for who he's facing. I think it's more whatever he's doing to get ready for the game, meaning his stretching and all that. He doesn't seem to have his velocity to start the games. And he's trying to overthrow. And in today's game against Milwaukee, he hit a batter and walked the guy. Allowed those guys to come in.
Now, do you? I will. I'm asking you genuinely. Has he mentioned like, is there any like residual like pain from his injury?
Not necessarily pain, but I think it's tough, which people forget, especially when you're about to go in the final days of September, final month of September. Excuse me. You have, I mean, let's remember he hasn't pitched since May before this, so it's kind of like he's got to refine himself, and it's almost like April to him again. I think it's going to take him, and I know it sounds like excuses, but I mean the guy had an ankle injury and a rib injury, so it's not like he's coming off, just a minor injury. There's a reason why he's been out all this time. So I think as he's trying to ramp back up, get into these big games, I think it's going to take a little bit because he's kind of almost having to go through a minor spring training and get back almost to like the beginning of the year. So I think you're kind of seeing that fatigue's not the right word, but kind of gathering himself again for the start of that game, and it takes him a little longer to find that velocity as the game goes on. I think that's why you're seeing him get stronger as the game goes on because he's kind of revamping it and getting that strength back. So yes, maybe it's the optimism in me in this case, but I think as September goes, now, don't get me wrong, you could throw 120 miles per hour. If you can't locate it, it doesn't matter in the end because you get the walks and hit batters. So he's still got to find that groove again. So that's the concerning part is it's not just his velocity, it's the hit batters, the walks that are leading to those extra runs.
Not that I think Rob Thompson really lets the fans get to him or his clubhouse that much. But I think the worst part about Nola trying to get back in the groove of things is that he's already under the microscope, under the spotlight. Like the fan base picks him apart. Like we've talked about it on here. I have been, I would say, critical of Aaron Nola. You have been more in his favor, and I'm not trying to say I'm negative about him. I'm just being more, I'd say, on the realistic side of it. But it's just he is not given the benefit of the doubt in any way. So for him to perform the way he did last week, perform the way he did today, like he's just under the gun right now, under the radar, whatever you want, whatever youth, whatever. Um, and it's more or less a shame. And yeah, I mean, I hope he gets his footing. I will ask you if the preseason, if the postseason started, you know, I'll say next Monday, where are you putting Nola in your postseason lineup?
I'd have to put him three, I think. I
Yeah, yeah. I
go
mean, I think
I
that's
go
very fair.
Sanchez, Suarez, Nola, Luzardo.
Sanchez. So you have Lizardo after Nola, actually,
Yeah.
because I
I
was
think
actually
I
the
think in a
next thing
big
I was going to
game,
talk. All
I think in a
right,
big game, if you're up 2-1 or if you're up 2-0 in a series, if you're down 2, I'd rather Nola out there than Luzardo to close out or save a season. And here's the thing too, I look at, and I think you're big in numbers outside your number one guy. I think your number one guy goes number one, and then you kind of play the numbers game. And I'd almost maybe still go Nola too, just because he gets to throw at home in Citizens Bank Park where he's familiar, where he's going to have the fans behind him and back him up rather than a rowdy, let's just say the Mets because we've been talking about him, rather than a rowdy City Field, getting in his head. I might lean Nola, and on top of that, you break up the lefties, but more importantly, I think you get the fans behind him, and you go, hey, you got 4 or 5 innings, go through your 4 or 5 best, and see what you can do, and no matter, and I think that's where you kind of upfront with him, and you tell him, this is how you've struggled, so you get 5 innings. I don't care if you're throwing 5 shutout innings, giving up 5 hits. I don't care if you're going 5 3 runs, right? You're getting taken out there, and you kind of just make that game plan ahead of time. And Dave allowed that to happen with his move at the deadline.
I think the thing I'll add is, and I'm just kind of commenting on what you already said here, but I definitely think my decision depends on when you're playing at the bank because Nola, I don't have the numbers. in front of me, but I see enough to know Nola plays better at home. He just
Yeah,
does. So I think that's a major factor in where you put him. So obviously, very serious to series in the postseason. Things change what depending on your everything. Um, it's late, folks, but you know what I'm trying to say, and I think that's more of a factor. So I think we both agree Sanchez is your guy right now.
yeah, and with Wheeler, and that's what Steve Wheeler being out. You're talking about you could have Ranger Suarez or Nola being your um, 3-4 punch. I mean, that would be unbelievable. That's where the Wheeler injury really stinks. I mean, but luckily enough, you have depth where you can still survive. I truly believe that. Phillies can still win the World Series. That's Zach Wheeler. I truly believe.
I do too. I will say I wasn't going to talk about that right now, but I kind of tried to bring in the optimism at the top of this episode, but I truly think I don't think it's a given, but I think the Phillies can still make the World Series and win it. I think there is enough talent on this team. I just think Wheeler adds so much. Like there's so much more confidence in this team with him on it. Um, I did want to say before we move on, my last thing regarding pitching, which you talked about Luzardo being fourth in your lineup there. I actually think he's doing pretty good. Like, and I wanted to know if you agreed or disagree. Um, because the in the series against the Mets, he had the 4 earned runs, six total, whatever. But in the series against the Braves, Luzardo did have the only loss of the series. However, he didn't have any earned runs. So I wanted to ask your opinion on where you stand on Luzardo. He's been through a lot this season.
Yeah, he threw well, and he's kind of been up and down. I don't think he has his consistency right now. He's been good, been bad, been good. He's coming off a good outing against Atlanta, where the bullpen didn't do him any favors. He should have swept Atlanta. I mean, he really should have had that game, and it's a shame to see it go. It reminds you of the Phillies Mets game last year in the playoffs when Wheeler went out there and pitched really well, and then the bullpen blew game one. So, um, and it happens. And like you said, we took the 3 out of the 4, but I mean, all credit to Luzardo. He's seemed to figure it out a little bit after his struggles, and that's part of baseball when you go through that. I mean, unless you're top tier like Wheeler and Sanchez, you're going to have the up and downs in the season.
So, only two more things I wanted to talk about regarding the Phillies currently. Again, we're recording today on Wednesday, September 3rd. Now, first and foremost, you actually touched upon this, and I was like, classic Andrew stealing my like late game topic here. But Harrison Bader being added to the Phillies. We obviously love the Johan Durant trade acquisition, especially including the amazing lights that play and everything. But and I already told the viewers, Andrew, that you got to witness the first one ever at the bank, which was
Yeah.
really cool to have you experience and hear when you got back home. However, what I wanted to talk about, as I already said, was I just feel like while Duran was an obvious upgrade for the Phillies, Bader was one I talked about without you here. I said it was kind of funny because Bader was literally the Twins' replacement for Kepler. And so for us to get Bader, it was almost like, this feels like a very like parallel, very like not an upgrade, not a downgrade. It just felt like very whatever, which kind of looking for more of that in a offensive player trade acquisition. I feel like I couldn't have been more wrong. I feel like Philly couldn't have been more wrong. Since acquiring him, he's hit 313, which I don't have the exact numbers he had on the Twins, but I know it's been an improvement. Like he's just doing significantly better here now and consistent. In 25, or I already botched it, damn it. In 26 games, he's had 25 hits. Like he's doing really well here. And I think he's a significant part of this team right now.
Yeah, for sure. He's an underrated pickup. I think in the fans' defense, I don't think they necessarily hated the Bader pickup because I think a lot of people realize, the talent he had defensively and has had moments. I mean, he was at the Mets last year, had some big moments with them in the postseason. I think it was more they liked the move, but they wanted a better for sure hitter. So I think it was like
Yes.
you got Bader and you expected a second move offensively, and you never got that from Dave there. And I mean, I don't think anyone could predict the Bader playing this well. I mean, I like the pickup, but I mean, for him to be hitting 313 coming over, I didn't expect it to be that good of a numbers, especially having some big moments like I mean, I know they ended up losing, but he had the big home run to tie the game in New York at 5-5. And then he had the game-winning home run against Baltimore, the 3-run shot, his first hit with the Phillies. So he's had some big moments, and I think he's a guy that's always ready for the moment, and that's why I'm excited to see him in the postseason. But no, an underrated, great pickup for Dave Dombrowski.
And I agree. Like, that's a perfect summary of it. It's just an underrated move. He's been a great, consistent player, which is what we needed. We didn't necessarily need, I mean, not going to say no to, but you didn't necessarily need another powerhouse. You just needed more hits on the board. What do we pay you for? To get on base. And that's what Bader brings to this table, you know? So I have no idea how this is going to look, but I'm going to try it. So we lost Andrew due to some technical issues, but I wanted to just give a full final wrap up. Wanted to thank Andrew for coming on. It was great to have him back. Per normal, we had him for the Eagles week. Make sure you go watch that if you haven't already. And then for this Phillies update post-August, I think the bottom line is Phillies are in a good spot. And some scary things happening, between the Mets loss, obviously losing Wheeler, but there's some good here. And don't forget about the good. Bader's doing well. Phillies have a leg up on the Mets in general. Let's wait and see that next Mets series. And I believe we will next be meeting after that series is over. Might be meeting before. Stay tuned for that. But thank you, everyone, for listening to Philly Sports Now, a Philly fan podcast. You can find us on social media. Links are in the description below. They're in the description below. Thank you, everyone, again. Thank you, Andrew, for being back. I look forward to it. Please make sure you're subscribed or follow on Spotify. We are really excited for the Phillies postseason and the upcoming Eagles 2025 NFL season. So make sure you are locked in for us for news. And remember, there's no one more optimistic on Philly sports than us. So thank you, everyone, for listening. And as always, go Phils. Good night.